All right. So last week was our kickoff. How has your Tell me about your experiences between then and now, meditating, or reviewing the content or anything like that. Let's do a little check-in, as much as you'd like to, or not at all, which is also fine.
I'll check in. So I got all caught up on the Saturday recordings,
Oh,
and it
nice.
helped me to connect what we did here last Tuesday too. That was really cool.
Cool.
And I feel like my practice was good. I have a question, but it's kind of like a technical question, so I think like I'll save it till the very end because I don't want it to be off topic or anything.
Okay. Is it about meditation or is it about like website
Yeah,
or
it's
something like
about
that?
like controlling the breath when you're trying to observe it. Like, how
Yeah,
do you
no,
not do
let's hear your question, and then if now seems like a good
that?
time, I'll respond. Otherwise,
Thank you. Oh, yeah, just whenever I try to observe the breath,
mhm.
um, I start to like breathe deeper and um, like I'm controlling it. And then I started thinking about like how that relates to awareness. If I'm really like aware of the breath or if I'm like forcing my breath. So I got a
Mm.
little like confused and I wondered like how do you just chill out and not do that? Yeah.
No, for sure. I remember it's like you forget how to breathe or something. Like the natural aspect of your breath just leaves the building as you're like trying to observe it. You're like, wait, am I forcing it? And you're like, no, no, relax. And then you're like, wait, I'm forcing relaxation, you know? And then it just becomes this funny thing. So number one is that I think that that's not uncommon um, to when you begin to observe your breath, like it becomes something manufactured or something. So what I would recommend is just don't choose the breath. Choose some other kind of object um, at that time. So a good question is what are we trying to do with the breath? So if we're trying to just train our attention, then we can swap out the breath for anything. Like learning how to be selective and intentional about our attention, we can put that on the feeling of clothes on our skin or um, the heartbeat in your chest. There's a lot of different objects that have sensory qualities to them that we can use instead of the breath. So that's the first thing I would say is, you know, feel free to use a different object. And then if we're trying to do like an analytical meditation on breath, then that's a different story. Um, but again, there's nothing special about any one object necessarily. So we can use any number of objects. So don't feel like you have to use breath. The breath is empty, which is why we can use it as an object, which also means that we can use other things as an object. There's things that our minds are going to, for some reason, connect with more easily than others. I like to, for some reason, my mind really likes the idea of sinking my teeth into an object. Like, what can I bite onto and kind of hold? And for me, that can change from day to day. So don't feel like you're stuck on the breath. Feel free to take any number of objects. It just, the object depends on what you're trying to do at that moment. Like, what is the function that you're trying to serve with the breath in that meditation? Does that help, Becky?
Yeah, thank you. That's so helpful. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, cool. Okay.
Um, I would say for me, I've been able to meditate more than I had been habitually. I would say I'm still having trouble like really focusing, but I feel like I'm creating the right kind of momentum and habit. Um, so I'm gonna keep just keep doing, keep pushing, keep going.
Yeah, cool. Um, Man, I wish I could conjure this. I memorized this once a long time ago. It's Napoleon Hill. If you guys have ever read Napoleon Hill, he's something along the lines of whatever the mind repeats becomes a habit, and whatever becomes habitual becomes pleasant. And then whatever is pleasant, our mind likes to do. And I thought that was like kind of a cool sequential thought pattern of like, even if in the beginning it's unpleasant or difficult, just simply making it a habit makes it something that the mind will enjoy doing. So it's easier to do. So, so cheers on that. I think it's good to kind of have that persistent doggedness to it. But, it should be something that is rewarding and not something that's just challenging. So we're going to talk a little bit about attention today. I'm going to do a little bit of a roadmap. Um, and then LJ, if at the end of class we didn't address, I'd love to learn more about, this feeling of having trouble focusing. Um, I mean, it's where we're going in this course, but if we have time at the end of class today, I'd love to connect a little more specifically. Because you, like everybody, period, uh, struggles with keeping our mind on an object. So any kind of challenge that you're experiencing is going to be useful to other people because we're in the same boat. Well, thanks for sharing.
Of course.
Let's do this. All right. How to meditate, class two. Um, one of the things that gets us to commit and to have resolution and to continue with our meditation is to remember the benefits of meditation. So, for the people who showed up to class today, I don't think I need to really get into this, but I'll just kind of rock through it. Benefits of meditating are developing mental discipline. I find that to be extraordinarily useful in life because it's so easy to become undisciplined in our mind. Gaining insight also is really important as we realize that what we thought was true or helpful isn't always that way. And until we slow down and try to gather insight, um, that's not always apparent. So we do that through analysis, and I found this analysis to be like the skill of analyzing is not just useful when we're trying to talk about the nature of reality, but just developing the skill of analysis has become something really valuable and precious to me, which then obviously lends itself to problem solving. And then a skill I feel like is increasingly being lost. And it's funny because you'll hear people say this like 2,000 years ago in their writing. They're like, people are losing their capacity to memorize. And if they were saying that 2,000 years ago, how are we doing now? Goodness gracious. But it is very useful to memorize outlines because when we don't have, Google at our fingertips or something like that, or references, it's really, really useful to have an outline inside of you. And the outline being some kind of, any kind of outline, whether it's spiritual or not. It is very useful to develop the skill through meditation of going through outlines. Okay, how to meditate. So we're going to start to get into the basics of how to meditate today. Last week we talked about the modes of meditation according to the Yoga Sutra. And today we're going to talk about a little bit more about how to begin meditating. So the beginning of meditation is when we intentionally place our attention on an object. And I'd love to give you guys something that I got from Dr. Jonathan Yates, which I found to be extremely useful. It's a very simple phrase. When you find yourself with mind wandering, which is, you're not struggling to keep your mind on the object, you've completely lost it. So you're not even aware to struggle. Like the mind is just somewhere else. And then you're like, oh my gosh, and you wake up from mind wandering. Um, say I have, or like in your mind, say, my intention is to keep my attention on the object. My intention is to keep my attention on the object. And I found it to be really, 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 really useful. Just that small language, you're giving your subconscious and your conscious mind a really clear instruction, which it will follow to some degree. My intention is to keep my attention on the object. One of the definitions of a meditative state of mind that's really, really useful is that meditation is the place between agitation and dullness. So an agitated mind is the one that is jumping from object to object to object to object. So that's like the monkey mind. Um, and this, it's really difficult to just stay on an object. The dullness, then the other side of this, which is they call it elephant mind, is when it's like you're in a drunk stupor where your mind is very dull. It's not bright, it's not sharp, it's not even that you're lost. It's just that you're hardly conscious. And so, like, think about taking a camera and putting it on an object. And it's not so agitation would be the camera's jumping around to like many different objects, so you can never focus on the thing that you want to focus on. And they're with great clarity, like you're looking at the sky and then the grass and then the whatever. Dullness then is where the exposure is diminishing. You're not moving necessarily from the object. You're on the object, but it's just becoming like very dim. It's not bright. You're losing focus. The sharpness is going into some kind of blurriness. So it's like the a very, very good example of this is when you're on your way to fall asleep. Or maybe you've been driving and you start to fall asleep driving. It's the same kind of sensation of like, uh, where you're kind of just like falling asleep at the wheel. So meditation is the state which is in the middle between these two, which is pretty cool. It's like you're not agitated and you're not dull. And in the very beginning of the path of meditation, the goal is to provide remedy for the problem that you're facing. So if you're agitated, there's remedies for that. If you're feeling dull, there are remedies for that. And of course, that's what we're going to go through in this course. It takes a while, but we'll go through it. And so that's the beginning of the path of meditation is to recognize that you're in agitation and then remedy that, or to recognize that you're in dullness and remedy that, so that you can stay on the object, whether the object is compassion or kindness or presence or what have you. And then at the upper ends of meditation, the path of meditation, remedying actually becomes the problem. Very interesting. So in the beginning, you should be taking action when you should be taking action. And then what ends up happening then is that you get to such a stable place that you're actually overcompensating and you're taking action when you should not be taking action. Really nice. So that's a little sneak peek into the future. I really like this idea when we're feeling really like heightened in our life, like kind of like crazy vibes, like, I got too much to do, blah, 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 blah. Then you're not living in a state of meditation. And then if you're really relaxed, but maybe too relaxed and you can't get off the couch or you're feeling lazy or something like that, then you're in dullness. And so now you're not able to, really live powerfully because you can't move yourself to action. And so, where this might look like anxiety or stress or something like that, this might look like depression or lack of motivation or laziness. And so we can see this not only in our meditation, and our meditation becomes a great mirror to see how we are doing generally. It's like, it's true that when you take the temperature outside, it's not the temperature of the day because the day is 24 hours long. So you're taking a temperature of a moment, but that temperature is still indicative generally of how your day is going or how your week is going. Like generally, if the temperature is 80 degrees, then if we're in summer. So like we can assume that the season of our life is summer. And so if we're sitting down and maybe 2 days in a row, we just find ourselves in so much agitation, then the season of our mind is a season of agitation. So we can begin to take action in a way that's global, not just specific to our meditation. And so things like things that would be a really great example of how to address agitation globally in our world is create more open space in our schedule. Like schedule to have nothing scheduled. Like if you're constantly just like grinding, 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 then you're going to be stuck in a state of agitation. And then what'll happen is you'll burn out and you'll swing all the way over into the drama of dullness because now you're burnt out and now you know and so we you live in this like crazy pendulum from one to the other, from one to the other, to whatever degree you do not have self-mastery. So the like and you can even see this with dullness, like someone who's maybe sitting on their butt so long until the pain of sitting on their butt is so high that now they're so stressed out because I don't know, there's a leak in their roof and they just didn't address it, and now the leak is so bad that it's like so far gone that now they're totally frazzled. They're in a state of chaos, and now they're just like running around like a chicken with their head cut off, trying to fix it. Now they're in a state of agitation. So we can see how the pendulum swings from side to side. So our goal here is to be a little more even keel, which doesn't mean like this idea of like work-life balance or something like that. It just means that we are stewarding the constantly dynamic shift of the demands of our world and our capacity to supply those demands. And so, like, know thyself, understand where you're at and what it means to meet this moment, and then do so with grace. And so, if you're in agitation, in meditation, some very, very, very simple things, and we're going to get into this in greater depth, much greater depth in this course, but just it's good to know now. Hold on. Excuse me, I had a tickle in my throat. Good to know this now, but we'll get into this more later. In a state of agitation, an easy thing to do is take your eyes and just dip them slowly and dip them down. So even though your eyes are closed, just by looking down, you're kind of relaxing. Likewise, if you're in dullness, look up. If you're in agitation, a lot of times we'll put kind of where we're imagining the center of our consciousness in our head. So then drop it to the heart or continue all the way down and drop it to the navel. And so imagine that all of your consciousness is at the level of your navel instead of like your brain being the center of your consciousness. Likewise, if you become dull because your consciousness, you're fictitiously putting your consciousness down there or something, then bring it back up to the top of the head. And so, you can even go all the way to the crown. Um, and then one last tip, for the sake of today, is if you're in a state of agitation, extend your exhales. So if you, for example, have an in-breath of, let's just say, an arbitrary count of 4, then have your exhale be an arbitrary count of 5. And an easy way to do this is you get to the end of your breath and then you push out just a little more. So where you would normally be ready for your inhale, just do a little bit more. We'll see if the mic picks it up, but you could be like, ah, and a breath, and then inhale. Okay. And then if you're dull, then what you can do is have a more energetic inhale, or a little extra inhale at the top. So you can inhale a little quicker And then once you're at the top, if you'd like, then you give yourself just a little bit more. And it's true that you can change the quality of your mind quickly, but what I've found is that it's like if you've ever played like Mario Go-Kart or like any of those racing games at the arcade, sometimes you like overcorrect and you have to overcorrect back and then overcorrect back and then you're just kind of spinning like crazy. What I would really recommend is just make a small micro adjustment and give it time to take effect. And then you can always do more. And you can always do more, but ease into your adjustment. Don't just jump right into like or something like that. Okay, just make a small adjustment and then pay attention. For those of you who have studied the idea of analoma, viloma, and aloma, it's that same idea. Analoma, go with the flow. Viloma, disrupt the flow. Analoma, observe the new flow. All right. Cool. So, I wanted to just address that right away as we begin this journey. It's really funny because from, where I stand, I want to give you everything all at once, but obviously that's not possible. And so, uh, I, here's a roadmap. I wanted to give you a little bit of technique here so that we feel grounded in where we're going. And you have some tools at hand as we're going to go and develop these things. So we're going to go through the six. We just did a bunch of definitions. What is meditation? Why is it beneficial? Things like that. What is agitation? What is dullness? And what it means to remedy agitation and dullness. And then we're going to go into the six preliminaries. So what are the preliminaries before we even begin meditating? And then what's the seven limb prayer, which is kind of like, okay, now that I've begun to meditate, what is my entry into meditation? And I've found this to be extremely useful, very beneficial. And then we'll go through nine stages. We're not going to do all nine stages. That would probably take us like 3 years. Well, I mean, I'm down, like categorically. I just can't see that far into the future. If you guys will be around still or if I'll be around still or anything like that. But my goal with this group is to get to the fourth stage, because that's a really, really, really big milestone. So, and honestly, if everybody, in this course got to the fourth stage, then I would consider this to be a smashing success. Okay, so that's where we're going for the next probably 12 months of this course. Um, yeah, we'll see. All right, so that's the roadmap. Um, And then what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking much more about like the technique and method of meditation, but not necessarily focusing on the objects of meditation. Like why are we meditating? For what reasons should you meditate? Like there's a reason you're here, and that's a great reason. We're not going to go so much into this um, in this course, but I did want to again hit it in the introduction. So, how to use meditation. As we're developing these skills, what are we going to use them for? One of the things that I really cherish about this is that um, you get to observe what I call like the source code of your mind. All day long, we're running programs, which are mental habits. Like, oh, when I see the sun, I get up. Or when there's this cue in my belly called hunger, then I go and I eat. Or when someone yells at me, then I want to hurt them, or something like that. So there's all these codes in our mind, in our being, and we don't always slow down enough to take a step back and observe the code because we're so busy running the program. So meditation is how we observe the source code of the mind, which is extremely functional because you can say, hey, I don't prefer that. Or that's not what if it was up to me, that's not what I would do. which is a really funny statement because, you know, it admits that you're not necessarily in control of your mind. You are more like the recipient of the experience of your mind. And then what we need to do, it's just like when you tend a garden, you are not the garden. You interact with the garden, you observe the garden, you eat from the garden, you curse the garden when it's filled with weeds because you've been neglectful or something like that. The mind is not dissimilar in that way. It's pretty similar. And so, like, if we're so busy, you know, here's actually a fun way to say it. There's this one time when I built a very big rock wall in the jungle. And I remember that I was so busy stacking these stones, being very intentional, very careful, like really paying attention to how I was stacking the stones, that I did probably a solid 4 hours of just like really nice focus of like building this wall. Because my friend taught me like the Majorcan style of stacking stones, which was really cool. In Mallorca, like those walls have stood for hundreds of years with no mortar. So it's really beautiful to learn from him. But it is something very foolish, and and it was just such a lesson to me. I never took a step back to look at how the wall was shaping up in the bigger scheme of things. And so the wall meandered. Even though one stone on top of the other was a really good joining, I lost the big picture. And the wall the wall was like twisted. It wasn't straight. And I was like, "Oh my gosh." I got so focused on what I was doing that I forgot what I was actually trying to do in the bigger scheme of things. And so it's true that we can be very much using the tool of our mind, but have we taken the time to take a step back and say, how is the tool of my mind? Is it the way that I want it to be? Is it a good fit for me? Is it useful? Why is the tool made like this? Do I like that? So, and then because you're not necessarily running the programs, then you can change the code. Or you're not using the tool like you were, so now you can modify the tool. And essentially what we're trying to do is seek truth. And then, of course, what I love and the purpose of me endeavoring in this course and the other things that I do is that to be a spiritual warrior takes preparation and training. So we should do these things. Observe the source code, change the source code, seek truth, so that we can prepare and train to be a spiritual warrior. Which means we should habituate our mind on meaningful objects: compassion, love, wisdom, kindness, patience, courage, truthfulness, things like that, generosity, etc. How not to use meditation. Try to think of nothing. The irony of this is by trying to think of nothing, you are thinking of something. I think that's just so funny, right? Think of nothing, think of nothing. Guess what you're thinking of? You're thinking of nothing. Um, so yeah, it's just so don't do that. What I always say is if you're gonna cook, it is very useful to clean the kitchen first. So that is very useful. Like the idea of clearing the mind, that is different than trying to think of nothing. So it is very useful to clear the mind as a preparatory step to meditating. And then don't meditate on objects of suffering. Uh, like if we're thinking about how much we dislike somebody, that's not a, don't meditate on that. Maybe meditate on why it is that you have that story and understand now the effects of that cause to decide whether or not you'd like to continue to imprint your mind with those images of, I don't like that person, I don't like that person. You'd be like, what have I done in the past that has forced me to see this person in a way that is not pleasant? That's a really constructive way. to look at somebody that you don't like. So that's a good way to meditate, is to determine the truth of that suffering. That's good. Okay, cool. So, let's see. We got 20 minutes left of class. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to talk about the six preliminaries. So these are the six and this is, obviously this is according to my tradition. So, you'll find different traditions and each one has its merits. This is my preference and you're in my class, so I'm sharing my preference with you. So this is before we start the seven limb prayer. So it's really funny because if you look at how these stack up, you have the six preliminaries, which are preliminaries, and one of the preliminaries is to do the seven limb prayer, which is also a preliminary. So it's like a preliminary to the preliminaries. And then inside of the seven limb prayer then is the actual meditation. So it's kind of fun. All right, so let's get through these, and then that'll be class today. So and we're gonna go into depth in these a little bit later. The very first preliminary to meditation is to have a place to meditate. That makes sense because you have a body and your mind, uses the body and the body should be in a space. It has to be. And so make it a good space. And so what that means is clean and sacred place. Um, Cleaning is really good. One of the nice things about cleaning is that it gets your blood pumping. It moves your energy. So it's actually a precursory what do you call it? Like preventative measure to dullness. So cleaning is really nice, and I encourage you to really think of it like you would think of your asana practice. So as you clean your space, be intentional about your breath, enjoy that you're moving your body, feel the energy in your body, make it a really nice and intentional thing. It doesn't have to take long. And in fact, if you're really meditating every day and you're cleaning your space, uh, so the space should be clean and you should clean your space. So that's what clean means. So as you're cleaning it, you should feel a little silly. You're like, there's nothing to clean. I cleaned this, 24 hours ago. But just the action is really, really, really wonderful to clean the space, even if it's small. And then for me, if I'm already having trouble meditating, I don't want to go and like get something to clean with. So I always keep the thing that I need to clean my space with in the space itself. And it's like I have this tiny little broom, and that's my meditation space cleaning broom. Like a little hand brush and little tiny dustpan, and then I have a little like microfiber cloth that I keep, so I can wipe down my altar or something like that. And so it's specific for that space, and then it's not like I have to go and negotiate with myself to go walk downstairs, to get my broom or something like that. Um, and then really feel like it's a sacred place because it is. So choose it intentionally. It's a space that you can unfold if you're in a very small area. Um, it's not that it has to be that's the only purpose of that space if you're in a small area, but maybe when you're creating the space each morning or whenever you meditate, just have it in your heart that you're unfolding a sacred place. And then you can fold it back up and put it away if that's what fits in your world. Make offerings. This is a really important one for a huge number of reasons. And if you dropped in on my subtle body class, you got a little bit of a flavor of what, how that could be something extraordinarily, um, yeah, something extraordinary. Making offerings, the idea of that is that there is no worldly value to the thing that you're doing. And so you're very clearly investing in a spiritual truth. You're not going to invest it in stocks or something like that. You're not going to give it to somebody so they owe you interest or something. Making an offering could be as simple as, having a little flower and just setting it or, lighting some incense. Um, just, do something that makes it feel special. It's like someone once said that in the same way that a lover might put rose petals on a bed, We should prepare a space, with a similar level of intentionality. And I thought that was actually really, really a nice analogy. I have never actually literally done that, but I get the idea. Which makes me think now I should do that. Okay, so set out some kind of offering. Um, and what you're offering to is up to you, but it's really meant to be just kind of memorializing that this is a special place and you're about to do a special thing that's not normal. Okay. Um, Refuge and bodhicitta. We're gonna have a whole class on that, so we're gonna punt on that for today. But you should, before you begin your meditation, you should take refuge, and you should, like, as your entry point into meditation, take refuge and generate bodhicitta. Refuge meaning, um, go find shelter in things that could actually help you, and bodhicitta means be motivated to the highest good, which is, according to our tradition, um, the wish for enlightenment for the sake of all beings. Like want to become the best version of you for the sake of everybody. Okay. And then what we do after that is we visualize the garden. And I have a lot of fun with this one, taking it literally and metaphorically. So you get to choose what you'd like to do with this. Very traditionally, what this means is that you imagine um, all the lamas of the lineage, uh, a cloud. Like you can imagine, and really imagine that they're literally in front of you, like all the way back to, Lord Buddha and, even earlier, if you'd like. But just think about teachers who have come to serve others. And then imagine holy beings, so angels or, something like that. Because, you know, it is my opinion that it's not fictitious to think these things. I think that in the beginning, it was easier for me to think of it that way, but I don't know. Your experiences might change your opinion on that. All right. So what this does is it puts the mind into a very high state. Like if you were to think about the person that you respect most in your life, um, a literal person that you respect most in your life, maybe you've never met them. Like if Mother Teresa, let's say, just like walked in the door, I think I'd act a little bit differently than like if my high school buddies came and, with a six pack of beers or something. So it just, you really wake up and you really want to be in a virtuous state of mind out of respect. And so that's one of the things that happens when you visualize this garden. And so we call it a garden because number one is when we are doing things in the presence of these beings, they become kind of this, they help us generate a mind which is prepared to receive tremendous seeds, to plant really beautiful, beautiful seeds. And so in that way, it's like a garden. Because the mind which is thinking of these is a context that is very prepared for beautiful things to grow. And so in that way, it's a garden. And then another way that it's a garden is that to see beautiful people in your world is like to look upon a garden that you have cultivated and see its fruits. Because the reason why you can see a beautiful person is because you've been a beautiful person. And so it's fun to just be in your garden. Like I'm a gardener. I like to be in my garden. Like it's very nice. And so be in your garden, the garden of your mind, and enjoy it. There's really beautiful things there. It's true, we're working on our garden. Yes, there's some thorny bushes or something like that, and that's fine. But also there's flowers and fruits and stuff, so go hang out, have a good time. It puts your mind in a virtuous state. And then we do the seven limb prayer. And the entire purpose of the seven limb prayer is twofold, is to gather good energy and purify obstacles. So gather good energy. Um, Karma is energy, that's all it is. Everything is energy. Karma is energy. So we're trying to gather the good energy that is going to help us to live beautiful lives, meaningful lives, and then purify the things which block that from coming true. Um, yeah, good. And we'll do it through what's called a seven limb prayer, which is really nice. And then finally, we request blessings. And the technical definition of blessing, I think is really important. I had a lot of trouble. Um, I'm very, I, for a long time, I've been very not religious. So when I see religious words, it's really difficult for me to access them. Um, because I went through a period of my life where I like rejected religion. And but I really like these words because I understand what they mean now. And so like for me it was really hard to access the word blessing. Um, because I was just like, how could anybody bless you? And that's kind of the whole freaking idea. Is that no one could bless you. Right? And to understand that is a blessing. Um, like there is no inherent anything in anything. Which is kind of cool. And so when we talk about blessings, what we literally mean by blessings is to increase the good qualities and to decrease the bad qualities. That's it. Cultivate the good and transcend and get out of the bad. And so when we think about our teacher and we request blessings from our teacher, what we're really doing is what, in essence, is your teacher. You have to drill through the obvious to the profound. Obviously, your teacher is a being. There's a guy or a gal. Like my teacher has a name. I see them in a body, something like that. So that is the most obvious aspect of my teacher. But if you were to drill through the obvious to the profound, you would find the very bottom, so to speak, which is the essence of my teacher is that they are empty. And that is my teacher. My teacher is anything which reveals the truth and inspires love in my heart. Love, which is a function of logic, built out of the wisdom which understands emptiness. And so when we ask for blessings from the teacher, know who your teacher is. Your teacher is emptiness. Your teacher is the compassion which is born out of the sober analysis and understanding of emptiness and the implications of that emptiness, which is we should be kind. If we had any desire to be happy, then emptiness teaches us that we should be kind, so that we can have a good life because I want good. So let me be good. And then the blessing then that the teacher gives us is the result of the apprehension of that truth. The only thing that can happen when we understand the essence of the teacher is that the good is amplified and the bad is diminished. And that's the blessing. So, in a very obvious way, I'll say, Becky, please bless me. Or LJ, please best bless me. Or teacher, please bless me. Like, that's a very obvious way. But what are we actually doing? What we're really saying is, I wish to be in union with truth. May it be so. Yeah. Good. So those are the six preliminaries. Um, so your mission this week is to create a clean, sacred place with a designated chair or seat or whatever, and send me a picture of your setup. Um, if for some reason this terrifies you, don't do it. I just want to like be in each other's lives. I think that sounds nice. So, you know, don't feel an obligation to send me a picture of a very private thing of your life. But if you'd like to, go ahead. I think it's kind of fun. And then sit in that place 5 times this week for at least 5 minutes. We are beginning, if we haven't already, we are beginning to develop our habit now. And our meditation assignment is to meditate on the 6 preliminaries. So I just took a lot of time to explain each aspect of this. And so when we say meditate on this, what that can mean any number of things. The first is memorize it. Okay, clean and sacred place. All right. And then after that, then I need to make offerings and then refuge and Bodhi. So you start to run through it top to bottom as an outline. And then after the outline is set, what the heck does this actually mean? Question everything. It's got to make sense to you or else you're not going to do this. The mind cannot commit 100% to something it doesn't believe to be true. And so don't do this just because someone told you to do this. That's a good reason to start. If you think that your source is a good source, someone that you trust or something. But at the end of the day, this has to make sense to you. Or else this will just become another thing that you started and stopped. And just be a memory. Oh yeah, I did that once. But if you're like, I understand the value of a clean and sacred place because I took the time to investigate it. That's what I mean when I say meditate on the preliminaries. And, maybe we don't know refuge and bodhicitta very well because I didn't teach it a lot right now, but do the best you can with what you just heard. There's enough in what I just said for you to meditate on, guaranteed. And then you say, man, I'm not really comfortable imagining like a cloud of levitating teachers in front of me. Like, I don't know, it sounds kind of woo-woo. It sounds kind of crazy. Like, why do you feel that way? Meditate on that. Do you think that your story around that is a good one? Good meaning it's making my life better, or is it a bad one? One that makes my life worse? And I'm not to say one thing or the other. That's not why I said that. But you should know yourself and be confident in how you feel. And that the story that you're telling yourself, because you're hearing it all the time, make sure that it's one that you support. And test it always. I just don't think that that's useful. Well, why? Because I think that I'm imagining something that's kind of silly. Why? Well, because, what's the value of believing in these things? Well, you tell me. And then in your investigation, you may say, "Oh, wow, I never thought of it. Maybe that is a good thing. Maybe by imagining being surrounded by really beautiful beings, I might create the mental imprints which makes that a real thing. Do I believe that's true? I don't know. Do I? Well, let's check it out. Do I believe in cause and effect? Yeah, I do. I think that makes sense. Cause and effect, I can pretty much observe that everywhere in my life. Why wouldn't it exist here? Okay, cool. Check. Cause and effect is the thing. So, if cause and effect is the thing I believe in, then what is the effect of the cause of imagining being surrounded by holy beings? And that's for you to fill in that gap. Just check it. All I'm saying is just check yourself. I'm not asking you to do anything other than to think, to consider with sobriety. Oh, I feel uncomfortable asking, d divine beings for their blessing. Why? Well, why would a divine being want to give me the blessing? Okay, look what we just uncovered. You have self-esteem issues. Well, I'm not worthy. Oh, you have worthiness issues. Wow, look at all that we're learning about ourselves. Okay, well now that I didn't even know that I was had that internal story of self-esteem problems. Why do I feel that way? Do I like that about me? Like, is that something that helps me or is it something that hurts me? Okay, well, it obviously hurts me, but why do I believe that? And so all of a sudden, just by going through the preliminaries, you reveal yourself to yourself. Because the whole world is a mirror of your own mind, which means that you can see everything and everything. So, once you've come to a place of stability, where did I say this? Was it last class? There's two different kinds of meditation generally? I think that was last class. I get my classes mixed up. No, that was the Saturday class. This last Saturday. There's two different kinds of meditation generally. We're going to be teaching a lot more in this course. But very, very generally, there's two different kinds of meditations. The first is analytical and the second is single pointed. And these can be considered two different things, but we can also consider them as two wings of a single bird or two parts of a sequence. Um, the first part is to analyze what you believe to be true. Like take an object and analyze it. And then once you've come to some kind of conclusion or realization, then you stay in that realization in single pointed concentration and you stop analyzing. You just abide because you've just uncovered truth. So now imprint truth into your mind. That's why we seek it. So you say, huh, I've, turns out I have self-esteem issues because, I don't know, I sought out somebody's love and they never gave it to me or something like that. And then, do I like that? No. Am I ready to give it up? Yes. Why does that make sense? Because that's not truth. Oh, that's not truth. I've just uncovered truth. Now I'll stay here. My self-worth isn't based on other people's perception of me. And just stay there. Enjoy the delicious harvest of your garden. Like, here's the fruit of your labor. Party. Yeah. Like, we shouldn't work all the time. We should party. And so, what yield did your meditation have? Okay, just hang out in your yield. All right, I talked that whole time. We did not do any kind of guided meditation. Whoops. Um, I do have the intention of meditating together in these classes. Um, I will pare down the content for next time so that we have enough time to meditate together and then we can have some discussion. So, please meditate on the six preliminaries in the way that I have shared with you today for at least 5 minutes. You know, the word at least is operative, meaning shoot for five, but could be more, but at least five. You know, set a timer on your phone, something like that, and just, catch the 5 minutes. Just go have a meaningful experience. And keep me in the loop. I'm extremely invested in your success. So yeah, let me know because then I can serve. Well, thank you for class today. Um, LJ, I don't know if I addressed your question. I tried to hit it in the agitation versus dullness section of today. But otherwise, we'll catch up with each other this week. All right.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So class is formally over. But if you'd like to ask any questions or something like that, feel free. I'm here. Otherwise, I'll see you when I see you.
Awesome. Thank you, Bob. Take care.
Yeah, feel better, brother.
Peace out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bob. I feel
Yeah.
like I can physically feel my mind expanding. Like,
Nice.
so I want to live a meditative life. That was like a game changer. Everything you said was a game changer, and that's going to stay with me all week. Thank you so much.
Nice. Great. Cool. All right. Well, have a good rest of your day, unless you have any other questions.
Thank you. Oh, have a good rest of your day.
All right. Peace. Thank you.
Bye.